Welcome to my presentation on paradigm shifts. How do we move from neuron to brain to microtubules and mind? The title of the conference, Neuroscience Needs a Revolution to Understand Consciousness, took me back to my college days in philosophy of science, especially reading The Structure of Scientific Revolutions by Thomas Kuhn. This poster board video will look at the question, how do we foster a paradigm shift and what resists this? So as I go through my presentation, I encourage you to not look at me, but to look at the images that educate in another way. In science and philosophy, a paradigm is a distinct set of concepts or thought patterns, including theories, research methods, postulates, and standards for what constitute legitimate contributions to a field. The word paradigm in Greek is in origin, and it means pattern. Our current central paradigm in neuroscience focuses on neurons building up cell by cell to create the brain, and consciousness somehow mysteriously arising. This view is fostered from the materialistic worldview, which has dominated Western culture for the past several hundred years. In our brains, we can explain this as an aspect of left mode or left hemispheric processing, with its dominance in linear, verbal, and logical processes. I was indoctrinated in this worldview through my core textbook in neuroscience, From Neuron to Brain. This paradigm presupposes that mind is equal to brain. A definition of mind from interpersonal neurobiology is an embodied, relational, emergent process regulating the flow of energy and information both within and between. This diagram helps us expand from mind from our brains. The brain is not just inside the skull and the central nervous system, but suffuses your entire body. Dear viewer, we can experience right now how mind is arising from you viewing this presentation and my thinking about you as I create this at different points in space and time. The key word here is emergent, which implies an open system that can change, unfold, and grow from one pattern to another over time. One view of this new paradigm, supported by much evidence, is the importance of microtubules. Microtubules form much of the skeletal structure in our cells, especially as in this diagram in all the neurons inside each of us. The following is paraphrased from Stuart Hameroff and Roger Penrose. OR theory states that consciousness depends on biologically orchestrated, coherent quantum processes in collections of microtubules within brain neurons. These quantum processes correlate with and regulate neuronal, synaptic, and membrane activity and relate to the fundamentals of quantum mechanics and space-time geometry. OR theory concludes that consciousness plays an intrinsic role in the universe, quite an expanded and radical new paradigm. If the universe is made of matter, many of the aspects of quantum theory cannot be explained or understood. If the universe is made of consciousness, these paradoxes begin to resolve. This is a radical paradigm shift and revolution in neuroscience, starting with the whole, with the universe as consciousness and consciousness as an aspect from the whole, versus building up from the bottom with consciousness mysteriously arising. What could stop this? This bowl represents our current paradigm from neuron to brain. The crack, letting the vastness of the universe in, is the beginning of this paradigm shift, which is why we're here at this conference. We are creating this crack right now together through our awareness, attention, and intention. Once we learn something, our brains seem to store it and just go to this default pattern or belief, especially when our culture reinforces this materialistic worldview and denigrates the more holistic, right hemispheric functioning or right mode processing. However, as Hamlet says, there are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy, or I might add, science. Dreams, meditation, chanting, dance, psychedelic sensory deprivation, and flow states are some of the ways humans touch and begin to open to new possibilities beyond this narrow worldview. Ideally, each of us would have taken a very light tab of LSD before this presentation to allow our minds to be emergent and new connections to be made and to see new patterns. When we experience this larger field through awareness, through microtubule levels of quantum functioning, we can refer to these as microstates of consciousness. And that leads us to quantum versus Newtonian functioning. In quantum, we're into probability, functions versus certainty. We're into non-locality and entanglement versus separation. Consciousness is a larger process that extends beyond the brain versus being encapsulated in the brain, and there is no arrow of time versus an arrow of time. The following 3P diagram shows potentials, probability, and peaks of activation, shows subjective experience above, correlated with neuronal and microtubule functioning below. The closer we get to the open plane of possibility, the closer we come to this quantum functioning of mind, open, perhaps resting and arising from the quantum vacuum. The further away we go, we're more in macro states of consciousness or Newtonian functioning. In micro states, you may experience timelessness, no directionality of change, pure awareness, everything in relationship, and non-local effects or synchronicities. In macro states, mental formations, separation, and temporality. Macro states are accumulations, summations of microstates. The further from the plane of possibility, the more Newtonian. Your mind is quantum and Newtonian, although you're born into a Newtonian body. Without direct experience of microstates, most remain caught comfortably in macro states, in the intoxication of life. If you've not experienced microstates, it's a little like someone who is colorblind. It's just so hard to get. So I hope the LSD is beginning to kick in right now. Collective change can be even harder since it's so reinforced by each member of the collective and takes on a life of its own outside of our brains, reinforcing this belief pattern. A great example is the orbit of the planet Mercury. It was faster than Newtonian mechanics predicted, so astronomers hypothesized the planet Vulcan between Mercury and the Sun, creating its faster orbit through this additional gravitational effect. For decades, astronomers, through their telescopes, hallucinated the planet Vulcan. General relativity theory explained the orbital variation. It was due to the speed of the planet Mercury's orbit, which creates a slight relativistic effect. So what do we need for this revolution in neuroscience, this paradigm shift? We need to educate and rewrite our basic neuroscience text to include expanded views of microtubules and mind and micro and macro states of consciousness. Our educational system around consciousness needs to teach through left and right mode processing, hence the images in this presentation. We need to experience micro states of awareness, hence the LSD before this lecture. An easy meditation outlined in the book Aware by Dan Siegel, MD, is the Wheel of Awareness, which presents in a scientific manner and offers experiences of macro and micro states of awareness over time. Please contact me if you're interested, as I love to share this practice. Thanks for your attention and forming new possibilities of mind with me. Feel free to contact me through our center's website. And enjoy the rest of the conference.